Today, on Energy Contact, the two biggest selling types of books are cookbooks and diet books. Did you ever think about that, about the paradox? And if you have plenty of both of them on your bookshelf, you might feel stuck. Well, today we are all going to discover the path to liberation. We're all going to get unstuck. So liberate your schedule for the next few minutes, because that's what's coming up right now on Energy Contact.
He ain't gonna worry and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping, and I'll keep my mind on better things. He ain't gonna worry and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping, and I'll keep my mind on better things.
Hello and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of looking at yourself and a new way of seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. They're all the same thing. There is something about us that just loves to categorize and classify, divide and subdivide, file this one here and that one there. But all that health and growth and self-improvement that we're talking about actually take place when we do just the opposite. When we put these things together, when we make an energetic contact between the physical world and the unseen one. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move forward with that. Let's bring up our first slide straight away. Everyone, please understand that I am not a doctor. I don't want to be one. This show is not a medical show of any kind. I call myself an energy healer, a chakra healer, things like that. So might you if you came to me, so might a lot of people. But state, federal, and local governments absolutely do not. This is not a medical talk show, a medical advice show, a medical anything show. It's important to understand that. There's a lot of important information on your screen right now. Please read all of that with your full attention and your full awareness, if you will. But when you've got it down, now would be a great time to locate a pencil and paper. Now here's why you want to do that. At the end of this program, we're going to roll some credits, and on those credits, there's going to be contact information for me. Now I invite and encourage you to contact me. I'm sort of hoping something I have to tell you today will inspire you to want to do that. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. And in order to get that, you're going to need a pencil and paper. There will be plenty of time to get that stuff down if you've got your pencil and paper ready. All right, let's come back up here. Today's show is show number 63. And if you're tuning in for the first time today, well, thanks. Thanks and welcome. These shows are sequential. They build. So we're talking about things, we're presenting things today that we've defined previously, that we've explained. There's some ramp-up stuff, some up-to-speed things that you will have missed out on. However, I'm doing my very best to make sure that every show is complete on a standalone basis. If it's your first time today, I think you will get a lot out of the show. However, if what you see piques your interest, then I encourage you to look around, because there will be earlier shows airing at later times. They'll either be re-airing right here on this channel, or they'll be on at different days and times in different areas. And if you look for them, I'll appreciate it. All right, and now it's the part of the show where I get to introduce my co-host to you. Let's get my buddy Slim on. There he is. This is my friend Slim, and Slim is here for a reason. Since we're investigating what it is that energy contacts in the physical self, we have to know a few things about a few things, don't we? We have to know something about energy, obviously, and this show is certainly a program about energy. But all of that energy out there, somewhere in some abstract place, does us no good whatsoever. It does us no good until we bring it into contact with something. Slim is here to help us understand that thing that the energy contacts. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. An energy without a body, well, it might be a number of wonderful things, but none of them are human. All right, let's move along. Previously, we have all come to the understanding on energy contact that this physical world is all built by things that we cannot see, all a result of energy flows. And so these energy flows, they might be invisible, but they're very real. They have to be. They made all this stuff. In coming to that awareness, you've begun to see yourself in a new, in a different, and in a far more accurate way. The way that Einstein saw you, as energy flows and energetic forces, as frequencies and waves and pulses and vibrations. Not so much as blocks of ice, but more like frozen steam. We have seen that it is very difficult, if not absolutely possible, to be a spiritual person, to be a healthy person, to be a happy person, until and unless we somehow promote and control these flows of invisible energy through our physical structure. Energy just needs to flow through us. And if things are flowing through us, and if they're flowing along paths in us, then something must be in control of what it is and how it does it. Those are a couple of important things to understand, don't you think? And if we find it, then perhaps we can control that flow a little better, so that more good things flow through us more freely. Now, the main energy pipe we looked at was something called the Sushumna Nadi. It is the pipeline through which flows a mystical energy called Kundalini Shakti. And it's the pipeline upon which these things called chakras are located. The orchestrator of it all, that's the mind. That's your mind. And that mind pervades every cell of your body. Every cell in us has intelligence. And so the subconscious mind, then, is the body intellect. The same materials in our brains that give us thought, memory, reason, recall, intelligence, intellect, all those things that you were always told in school are brain functions. They are in fact in every cell of our body. They permeate every cell of our body. And so physically, we're built, we're manufactured by our own mind, by our body intellect. Now we've seen that mind takes the shape of whatever it is upon which it's focused. But the mind is also deceptive in its untamed form, and so most of us are thwarted right there, because the mind may deceive us into focusing on bad things, on unhealthy things, and then we take that form. The mind, the body intellect, functions properly when we're at peace. If we have peace, things flow and things go great. And if we don't have peace, we have pain and chaos, and flow stops. And if we have pain and chaos, then we have pain, and it all just turns into a big vicious cycle. So many people get caught in that. It's peace that keeps the mind focused on things that shape our life, and that shape our life in positive ways. Okay, not everything that feels good is good for us, and not everything that hurts is bad for us. We've seen that we tend to feel good when we're contained, but containing ourselves isn't always a good thing, because then we contrive these things called boundaries, and now the trap is set. Pain is always resistance to flow. Pain and chaos are always the opposite of peace. And peace, as we have seen, is always very pleasant. All right, that brings us to today. And today, while we've already seen that the chakras are the things that either promote or crimp off the flow of energy through us, and while we've already seen that the mind is the thing that opens up or crimps off the chakras, today we want to see what opens and closes the mind. So we're peeling the onion back, going even to a more fundamental level. We want to do that, and we need to understand, in order to do that, something about our so-called nature. What it is, what it has to do with it, and how we can transcend it if we need to. We need to take down the barriers to flow. And so we're going to have to understand something about nature to do that, so that we can dismantle what deceives us. The goal is health, growth, happiness, self-improvement, and realizing our full potential. Opening the chakras is a very good idea, but it's not the goal. It's just a means to the end. It's a way to get there. But promote energy and inhibit it, those chakras are somehow very involved in the process. So that's where we're going. We know that the mind is the opener and closer of things, and we know that the mind builds the body, and we know that nature always wins. So what our show is about today then is understanding the interrelatedness of all that. Discovering what we can learn about our chakras by looking at our bodies, and what we can learn about our bodies by looking at our chakras, and so on. Getting past the smokescreen that our mind can throw up at us. Getting past that primitive search for pleasure, that life that's dominated by the avoidance of pain and fear. And when we have accomplished that, then we can move on. To move invisible yet very real energy through our physical self. In fact, it's the physical world that's the unreal part, isn't it? The physical world is just a hologram of sorts. It's just a shadow of that invisible energetic world. It's an optical illusion. It's the energetic world of wavelengths, of flows and frequencies and vibrations and rhythms and pulses. That's all that's real. It's that frozen steam that Einstein spoke about so clearly. Yet so many people, including people who study Einstein, who use his theories daily, even people who teach his theories daily, they are somehow unwilling or unable to consider. All right, so that's where we're headed today. But first, we've reached the part of our show where we get to take a little break. We've come to the part where we get to take our virtual field trip, our journey in our mind's eye. For today's field trip, visualize that you are ready to go out with a big group of people. You're going to go out to get pizza. Now, this group, it could be a club or an office group or an organization or something, but whoever it is, you're all friends, you all like each other, and you're all just going out to get some pizza. And for today's field trip, we're particularly going to focus on 3 people in this group. These 3 people either have or have had issues with their weight. All right, you ready to go? The first person actually declines our invitation at first. She says she doesn't want to go. She kind of turns pale and says, "Oh no, no thanks. I've been on a diet, and just being around all that food is just too much of a test for my willpower." But she's a pal, and you guys tell her, "Well, hey, look, we won't let you eat too much." And you twist her arm a little bit, and finally she gives in and says okay, and goes along. At the restaurant, she's there and being cordial and stuff, but you can tell she's a little uncomfortable. She's sipping on a Diet Cola and having a salad and just looking longingly at all the pizza that everybody's having. But you notice something else too. She's also slimmed down a bunch. She's looking pretty svelte and healthy, and so she's got that going on. Well, about that time, you find yourself talking to the second of our 3 people. This fellow is as big as he's ever been, even a little bigger. And he's starting to tell you about his metabolism, about how it's too slow, and about how he can just look at food and smell food and gain 5 pounds, and how it's not fair and all that. And you're taking all that in, but you also notice that he's shoving down pizzas like there's no tomorrow, like it's going out of style. And a few minutes later, he's ordering the breadsticks. And after that, he's talking about the Wednesday all-you-can-eat special that he comes to. And then he's telling the group, "Hey, after we're done here, let's go down to the ice cream shop down the street." All right, then you look to the other side of you, and you notice the third person in our story. This person was heavy a few years ago, but she slimmed down a bunch, and without a bunch of fanfare either. And you know what? She's very comfortable at the pizza joint. She's having the time of her life. And she says to you, "Hey, see that slice of pizza over there? You want to split it with me?" And so you say, "Oh, you're on a diet, huh? I guess you're not allowed to have a whole slice." And she looks at you very politely and very firmly and says, "You know what? I'm allowed to have anything I want. I'm well over 18 years of age, and I can do anything I choose. And what I choose to want right now is 1/2 of that slice of that pizza right there. Now, do you want the other half or not? All right, a few minutes later, after she's eaten that, somebody comes up and says, "Hey, do you want another slice of pizza?" And she says, "Oh, no, thanks. I've already had some. It was delicious." Okay, hold that thought. We've been talking about opening and closing chakras, and we've been talking about Kundalini energy and energy pipelines, things like that. Before we address them specifically, we still have to bounce around a little bit. But here's the connection right now, in a nutshell. The ultimate opener and closer of things is the mind. We even use the statements open-minded and closed-minded, don't we? But what do we mean? Do we even know? Well, probably not, because most people don't really even know what the mind is, how to define it, where it's located, much less have any control over it. A surgeon can cut you open and look all day long, and he will not find your mind. Yet, we all seem to believe that it exists, don't we? Even the surgeon does. And so, even for scientists, what we accept as real or what we reject, it's still a matter of subjective choice, isn't it? Just like it was in very primitive times. All right, so we open and close chakras, or we open chakras rather, by generating peace. And we close them by putting obstacles around them. But here's an important point to know. Those obstacles are of our creation. You did it. And then you gave those obstacles a title. You called them boundaries. The fact that you are responsible for your own problems, you might think, boy, that sounds like bad news. But you know what? It's very good news. And here's why. Because if you did it, you can undo it. You can redo it. You can do it any way you want. But let's go back to those boundaries. Boundaries can be defined as the tools that you use to keep from moving forward. They're a cage that you build for yourself. They are your religion that keeps you from being spiritual. All the time we meet people who are talking about honoring their boundaries, respect my boundaries this, you're violating my boundaries that. And if they throw those phrases around all the time, they're often angry and manipulative and petty and just generally disagreeable people to be around. But what does all this have to do with how the mind builds the body? Well, that's where we're headed. Let's take one more little side journey. My clients, my people who come to me, they often ask me, why do I look this way? And that question usually accompanies a complaint about the appearance of their physical body, about something that they've come to me in the way they look, that they've come to change. And here is how I answer them every time, and it's the right answer every time. I say, well, it's because you did it. You see, they did it. They built themselves precisely, meticulously, in every detail to their own specifications. And so did you, and so did I. How do we do it? It's the mind. That mind that permeates every cell of our bodies, all 10 trillion of them. Not only that, but our body and every cell in it is our mind, which means that the body intellect then is the subconscious mind. All of the things that make us look the way we look, act the way we act, think the way we think, and feel the way we feel, they're all just a part of the experiences that are floating around in every cell of our body. And experiences are invisible too, or are they? Okay, we're speaking about how we build ourselves and how we bind ourselves and then how we cage ourselves, and that brings us back to the story of Shakti's cage. Remember our story of Shakti? The story of Shakti, it's a yogic parable about energy flows in our body, in ourself. Shakti has this boyfriend named Shiva, and she wants to see him, to be reunited with him very, very badly. But she's very, very far away from him. And so she has to go on a journey. And that journey takes her through channels and pipelines. And in order to complete it, she has to figure out how to get past obstacles. But there's another problem. Before she even starts, she finds that she's trapped, she's caged, she's bound. That cage is synonymous in our bodies with our pelvis, where the root chakra is. But it's also analogous to our boundaries. And that brings us to something called the Sushumna Nadi. Let's bring up a slide of that. What you see on your screen there, on the right side of your screen, is the Sushumna Nadi. Actually, the Sushumna is just that skinny little pipe in the middle of all those circles there. And that is Shakti's path. The Sushumna Nadi is the pipe through which Kundalini Shakti must travel and upon which is located 6 of the 7 main chakras. It functions a little bit like that medical symbol there, that's why that's on your screen, and it runs along a path that is roughly the same as your spine, and that's what that's doing there. Those little circles on the drawings on either side of your screen, those are chakras. Now, opening up those chakras is a very good idea, but it's not the goal. We're only opening them so that we can move energy, so that we can move Kundalini Shakti, notice that name, unimpeded up the Sushumna. But even that's not the goal, it's the means to another goal. All right, let's come back up here. All of us, in a metaphoric but in a very real way, want to get the Shakti in us to wake up, to break out of that cage that is the pelvis and move up unimpeded through that Sushumna Nadi and be reunited with Shiva. But our friend Shakti, she can't do that. She can't even begin her journey because she's bound. She has boundaries. Before she can start traipsing through nadis and chakras, before we can either, we have to break out of our cage. And then we have to mutilate it, destroy it, so that it can't reset and trap us again. Remember these important points. We're getting ready to put them all together. It is very difficult, if not absolutely impossible, to be a healthy person, a happy person, a spiritual person, until and unless you move individual energy through your physical structure. It's the mind that orchestrates this. The mind takes the shape of those things upon which it focuses. All of the physical self is built by the mind. And finally, nature always wins. You can fight nature all you want, but you will lose. So why not cooperate with it? That way you can win too. Okay, so we're all moving energy. We're all moving energy enough at least to stay alive, is evidenced by the fact that we are alive. When we cease to be able to circulate enough energy, enough chi through us, well, that's when we die. But many of us, while we're alive, we're energetically emaciated. We don't build our physical selves in ways so as to promote the flow of that energy very well. Want to see? Well, let's bring up a slide. Here are a couple of friends coming up that we saw in a very early episode of Energy Contact. We saw them a bunch in those early episodes. They, like you and me, built their bodies to their own specifications. They're creations of their own minds. If you know somebody that looks like the gentleman on your screen there, you know that it's far more than his body that's rigid. His rigid body is just a creation of his rigid belief system, attitudes, values, so on. See that woman there? She is deflated. She's the product of a deflated psyche, a deflated spirit. Can you see that? Now, she might look a little lazy, but it took her a lot of work to build herself that way. Here's why we're looking at them now. We want to understand how to get chi moving through that. I don't think we can. I don't think we can get any energy through there. Our dude there's too stiff. Energy doesn't flow well through rigid mass. And the deflated woman's body, her body intellect is just too tired. It's just too lethargic. Let's move right to the next slide. And take a look at these guys. You think they're moving any chi? Do they look peaceful to you? Do you think that when they built themselves, they constructed some obstacles into their nature? How do you know that that man is angry? How do you know that that woman is depressed? You haven't interviewed them. They haven't spoken. But you know, don't you? Because they're wearing it on every cell in their body, that body that their mind created. All right, let's come back up here. You know what else permeates every cell of their body? The body intellect. And in a perfect world, that body intellect longs to move Kundalini Shakti up through their Sushumna Nadi. But it can't. It's trapped. It's stuck in a cage. It can't even get out of their hips. Now, some people might say, well, Joseph, the way we build ourselves is random. It's not like that. It's just the luck of the genetic draw. But we're seeing ourselves a little more accurately, aren't we? You want to see a little more? Let's bring up our next slide. How about these guys? You think they built themselves randomly? Do you think you can just look at those pictures and know something about their personalities? I do. I can. Don't you see a thread of commonality in them? A similarity? They worked long and hard to build themselves, and they're very proud of what they created. If I went up to them and told them that I think they're energetically emaciated, they might take issue with that. But look at them. How are you going to get any chi through that tight winding? One day, these guys might wake up at 45 years old and discover they've got hemorrhoids and a heart condition. And they'll say, how could this happen to me? I've taken such good care of myself. Did they take good care of themselves? Maybe not. All right, let's come back up here. The more we flow energy through our physical self, the more healthy we will be. Actually, let's go right to our next slide, and we'll look at something that my friend Gandhi said. Your beliefs become your thoughts. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. And this is profound, but do you know what else? Every belief, every thought, every word, every action, every value become your body. And the body is your tool to walk through your destiny. And the mind, the body intellect, is what's making it all happen. Nature always wins. There's a grand nature and our personal nature. And nature always wins. And we live in a world that tells us to respect our nature. But what if our mind has turned our nature sideways relative to the grand nature? Well, if we're respecting who we are and respecting our nature, then that sets up a life where we have to fight it forever and try to win. How do you expect we're supposed to pull that off? It's impossible to fight our nature. But it's relatively easy to change it and then cooperate with our new one. Let's go back to our friends at the pizza parlor. The first two are playing in the rat race. One's winning it and one's losing it. Problem is, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. It's the third person who's the hero of our story. She's not living a life of denial or a life of consequences. She's not on a diet. She hasn't been for years. She gets to eat pizza. You know why? Because she wants to. That's our lesson for today. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Until then, I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.
I've been keeping and I'll keep my mind on better things.